on my channel. Right? It's been a while since I've actually did one of these things, because this is like, well, hey, not quite the state of the channel. This is not the state of the table. But we're going to talk about a little bit, a few other things, because it does have some pertinent to me. Yeah, this is COVID here. This is not my preferred. If you ever seen me with crazy man hair, this is crazy man hair. I have not had a haircut since spring, right? And that was when my sister came over. She was supposed to bring some stuff over and cut my hair yesterday, and forgot it, of course, right? So at some point, when I get a chance and I got the cash, I have to find some place to go get my hair cut, because the place I usually go is still not open yet. I don't know what the deal is there, uh, right? And I'm usually fond of having a very close cut, crew cut, mostly because of the simplicity of it, right? So there's part of it, And then there's some strange. I'm having some physical things going on this year. For a lot of people, COVID's been a very bad year. I won't lie, it's reduced my average hours for the year probably by 15 or 20%. I'm not making as many 40-hour weeks as I did last year, and it takes its toll. I mean, we're paying our bills, we're staying ahead, which is, without a doubt. Uh, the next couple months is going to be really rough. My wife has Medicare for her epilepsy because she's fully disabled, but she doesn't qualify for the Title D part, so we have to pay out of pocket for the prescriptions. Now we have a supplement insurance. It costs about $30 a month, but at the beginning of the new year, it recycles, and there is a $500 or so thing you have to pay off first, right? Not copay, but deductibles. So, and we have to pay full price for her medication, and she takes 4. And the top one is about $150 a month, and the other one is around $80, and then about $50. You see how it goes. So when you look at the total there, we're looking at about $300 out of pocket for her medication for the next 2.5 months. And once that's all taken care of, about mid-March ish, we should start seeing her medication reduce, and by the first part of spring, it will be where it was for the rest of most of last year, where her most expensive, that 150 becomes like 40. So it's a huge difference. And when you're already hurting money, you're not getting the hours that you want, that you need to get your basics. It adds to the problems, right? And so we're hoping nothing major mechanically wise goes south in the vehicle or the the furnace, appliances, things like that around here. That said, we've had a good year, relatively speaking. We have not had any serious problems. We have had. We have a home appliance. It was called American Home Shield. We're now just switching to something called Choice Home Insurance. Anyway, it covers things. So when our furnace went out, it only cost us $75 to have fixed. When a water heater needed to be replaced, that was a $700-800 water heater, and we only paid $75 for it. But we also paid $800 for a year's worth of that insurance, so see, it kind of balanced out. We sold the RV, which we were. If you just got to go back and look at some of my earlier videos to understand just where we were a couple of years ago. So we're far better off than we were a couple of years ago. Well, finally, I let the RV go because it was deteriorating and we weren't using it. And we weren't planning to go camping in it. And I was holding on to it for, I don't know, out of fear. What if? So we let it go. And the money we got out of it, part of it we used to pay for yet another year. And this time we went with a company called Choice because my boss's wife talked me into it because we all got a kickback for jointly signing up for something. So hopefully it is as good as American Home Shield. And even better, let's hope I don't have to use it. Right? Our van has some issues. I'm not sure what's going on with it. They're petty. I can fix some of them. I tried fixing one twice now, and it just keeps coming undone. So I have to find another way of getting around fixing it. It's nothing major. But once again, late in November, first part of December, the wife finally got her $1,200 stimulus check, which, because whatever reasons, it just finally came in the mail. I did not get one because I owe back child support, so they kept it. The one condition, the one thing that the government could gleefully keep putting screws to, even though everybody's desperate for money this year, they wouldn't take it. As it sits, I still got a couple more years to pay that total off, and once it's off, it'll be like getting a $600 a month pay raise, right? $600 a month is what I go to pay that back support. And how the back support accrued and stuff, well, it's none of your damn business, and it's complicated. It's always complicated in my eyes and not the eyes of my ex-wife and the other people involved, but that's just is where it is. So another couple of years, that'll be paid off, and that'll be a huge boon for us. This time last year, the truck that I drive at work broke down, and it broke down in such a manner that it was not cost effective to replace it or fix it, so they had to replace it. So we had to go through about 6 weeks, a period of 6 weeks, from the end of December into the middle of February before we got a replacement truck, and then it was a mad dash to try to catch as many of our counts up as we could, so we didn't lose any of them. And so I was balls to the walls, literally 7 days a week, 60, 70 hours a week for about a month. And then COVID hit. It was like running into a wall. One day I'm doing 70-hour, 65-hour a week, and then all of a sudden half our clients started crying and screaming and complaining, or just flat out shutting down because everybody shut down for a couple of weeks, and here we are, still stumbling and bumbling away. And and while I don't want to get into a diatribe on politics and things like that, apple cider, I'm going to do it a little bit because God bless the Republicans. My dad was a Republican his whole damn life. But so many Republicans today are blind to the actual people in the GOP who are running things in Washington. All politicians are crooked. They're all in the pockets of big business today. That is our fault as citizens. We have done a very bad job of holding these people accountable for their behavior. The examples are listed constantly out there of these people in Washington who have taken advantage of their knowledge of inside things to pattern their own belts and make themselves wealthy, while the rest of us, well, good luck for you. So when they argue over $600, whether it's $1,200 or $600 or no $100, but we can give hundreds of millions of dollars to major corporations so they can have free lunches, and or we can do all these so-called tax breaks that they've done. A study came out this past week from a prestigious place in London who's did research for the last 50 years on this trickle-down thing, and it doesn't work that way. And my art, we'll give the tax breaks to the upper wealthy, and then they will spend their money and invest in business and jobs and things like this. And it doesn't play out that way. Statistically speaking, the facts don't lie. Just like science. Science goes out of their way to make sure things work the way they're supposed to work, and they don't lie like they say. Only people choose to take what they want to see and ignore the rest. And this is part of the problem with these certain people in certain parts of the government, and it's been going on for 30 years or better. It's not something that's new. It's just become very openly blatant when everybody's in a bad spot. A large piece of the country is in a bad spot. And the argument, well, we shouldn't have to pay these people to sit home and not do nothing. You still do. You still do. That's an arrogant thing to think, that the fellow American, your fellow citizen, should starve to death and go without health care or a roof over their head because somehow or another they're lazy. And grant you, there are a percentage of people who are. Right? But you're still paying. The tax money goes into all kinds of charities and other functions that are, conveniently shells of major corporations who profit from a lot of it. So for every dollar you donate to the United Way, X amount of it goes to the actual people in need. The rest of it go to running administrative costs and operations and fancy buildings and fancy offices, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been a big donator to the United Way for many years, and I've benefited from programs that the United Way operates. Now, I'm not picking on the United Way. I'm just showing them because they actually do a damn good job. Their percentage of what they use for operation versus what they use for helping people much grander than a lot of those other programs. A lot of those other programs, the operational budget is far higher than what they tell you because they don't, and we don't ask, we don't care, right? Because we're so busy about dealing with our day-to-day life and doing what we can to improve that for our family and our friends. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm one of those people that came from the lower end of the stuff. And I've been in the lower end of the stuff off and on my whole life, and I've had issues and problems, and I've worked hard my whole life too, and never quite profited. It's just only here I'm 54, and I'm just now, I've got a job that actually pays more than, I've never made a job in my life that pays what I get, and it's pretty decent money, but it's still not. When I compare to everybody in my industry, the people who do what I do for my competitors make $3-4 more an hour than I do. And I only make slightly above this so-called $15 minimum wage that is desperately needed because the old days with most of these part-time minimum wage jobs, the idea was they were entry-level jobs. So for high school kids to get something to get started in the working world, or for college kids, or parents who needed a little extra cash to go work let's go work a couple hours a week at so-and-so. That was what the minimum wage was about. The problem is that manipulations of the corporations and very rich people and or the government and a combination thereof has kept this to a point where so many people actually this is their wages. They go to work for these places that pay just above minimum wage. And then the argument is, well, nobody pays the actual minimum wage anymore. That's true, in part because the job market got really tight before this pandemic and stuff shut everything down. Right? I hear a lot of that from the Republican side about isn't that convenient that they did all this, right? Yeah, they did this, right? So we could drive a whole bunch of people that had jobs to go out and look for more jobs or other jobs. Well, they're lazy because they lost their job because of nothing they did wrong, and they're waiting for the company to reopen or to expand or to call them back. But now we're getting to the point where that's not going to happen, folks. So if you've been waiting for your fairly decent paying job to call you home, better give up on that and go look for another job. I hate to be the one to say that because I don't like believing that way, but the facts are out there too. So we look at somebody who my wife worked for Casey's for 20 years. She was making upwards of $12 an hour when her epilepsy became too much for them to keep her employed. The average person back when she started made $4, $5, $6 an hour, $7 an hour because that's the way the minimum wage was set. But she worked 35 to 40 hours a week every week for 20 years and gradually increased her pay through the longevity and hard work and the annual raises. She got some benefits. For many of those years, they did everything they could to keep her away from the 40-hour full-time status so they didn't have to give her more benefits. But eventually, over time, that worked into that too. But for the most part, all those people who she's worked beside all those years, that was an entry-level job. It was a starting stone. It was not something really meant. Now, she was offered chances to advance, and she refused them. Well, that was on her, right? So, fact was, if she went out and if somehow they decide to get rid of Social Security, she loses Medicare, or they decide to get that nice little caveat for the big pharma and the big healthcare companies where they don't have to honor pre-existing conditions because, she's had epilepsy since she's 5. They could kick her off and she would have to go back to work. But nobody's going to hire her because she has seizures at work. So what does she do? There's a reason our society is set up the way it has been, and we've tried hard to take care of everybody, but not hard enough. And it's gotten more and more c'est la guerre, because everybody's worried about their own thing, and we're so disinformation. Everything's so not right. So yeah, okay. Like I said, I went off on a tangent on the politics, and that's not what you wanted to hear about, right? So, all right, bear with me. Personal this year for me has been my teeth. I've lost 4 teeth this year, and I'm fixing to go to the dentist tomorrow and have them do a major overhaul, at least get into them and see, because I've got 3 more teeth with big holes in them and sharp, jagged edges, and they're doing a number on my tongue. My tongue is just raw, And it's been raw for weeks, a month. Don't know why, other than all these jagged edges. I had a tooth, a molar back here. I had a root canal 30 years ago in it, and I had a cap. And eventually, it just somehow it finally excavated underneath of it. And I was eating one day back the early part of the year, and it just collapsed. So I still have part of that molar, the surface root part in my gums. The top part's gone, and it messes with my tongue. Over here, another molar, right here, this one here. This one here was also a tooth, a root canal done probably 20, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, and they put a cap, what's called a temporary cap. It lasted that long. And so it was a dead tooth, but functionable. And then right about Thanksgiving, we're eating Thanksgiving, and all of a sudden I'm feeling something moving around in my mouth. And I go, what the heck is that? And I pulled it out, and that's tooth. So I got this very jagged, raggedy stump of where this tooth basically, it just came off. Eventually, the enamel and stuff failed, and it just came off. And next, there's a space. There's that raggedy, freaking stumpy thing. And then over here is this other tooth. Now this other tooth was one that I had a root canal done probably 15 years ago, and it had a partial cap on it. It had some other work on it, and it lasted a long time. And then one day I was eating something, and it crunched, and it cracked and split in two, and then broke off. Another piece broke off. So now it's this little jagged left of the stump. Now I saw a dentist twice this last year, and both dentists said, "Well, if it's not bothering you, leave it. It's probably better just leave it alone at that time." Well, now in addition to this other ragged, now it's a big gaping hole with ragged surfaces in here for my tongue that when I'm sleeping, it wants to lay in that, or anyhow, it's playing havoc on the inside of my mouth. It's one of the reasons I think my voice is a bit dodgy. And of course, your voice changes. I already have issues with pronunciation. You damn well know that. If you watched any of my videos, I struggle with pronouncing very convoluted words, as I call them, names and things like this, names and place names and stuff in various fantasy settings and things like that are very awesome to look at when you read them. Much harder if you're not a bloody fluent linguist, and a lot of us aren't. And I always get annoyed when I hear somebody giving somebody crap about mispronouncing something, and I'm thinking, dude, we all can't be Miss Manners when it comes to language, or Mr. Perfect. So cut some people some slack. Also taking to a point, we pronounce things differently from other people unless we hear somebody else says, oh, this is how the proper thing is to pronounce. Because we don't, the concept of phonics and all the other things, while we may understand them, don't always register at the time. We're looking at something and going, this is what I think that word sounds like. Now that I've got a couple big huge gaps in my teeth, I'm adding some more S's and other things that are blowing, this is going to even make it more of a challenge. So that's something to keep in mind in future videos, that I do have half the teeth I did. Now, I had one tooth started to go, or over here it started to go, and I could feel the pain coming, so I went in and I scraped together all the money I could. It cost $250 to get them to pull the damn thing. And then about a month after that, a tooth right next to it went south, and it went south in a hurry. And I didn't have the money, and my boss's wife was able to negotiate with her dentist to get it done pro bono. So he pulled that tooth. So that opened up a big gap over here that wasn't there prior. And in doing that, both those teeth exposed the fact that the adjacent teeth are also in very bad shape. This one actually has a hole you can put a toothpick through one part of it. And my teeth have become very sensitive to heat and cold over here over the past few weeks. So it's a good thing I've got this dentist appointment coming. We're on that up and down thing. For the last 2.5 years, since the mid-17 or late 17, I have not had insurance. The previous insurance ended, and the company I went to work for can't afford to offer insurance. And I can't afford to pay for Obamacare or my own personal insurance. And people make that stigma, and I really want to reach out and slap them in the head. There's a lot of people that simply cannot pay for that stuff. We want to pay for it. We want to have it. I would dearly love to pay for stuff out of my pocket for things like that. Give me a better paying job. If you know that I could go try to find one. I could probably find one that pays a couple bucks more an hour, but at the end of the day, I still would have struggled to try to pay for $500 a month insurance. It was this or a freaking mortgage. I chose to buy a house for my wife and I. She has her medication, so she has her health needs taken care of. I didn't qualify, right? And I was very leery too because because I made what I make, even though I have such huge deductions out of my checks for back child support and for taxes and paying all of our regular utility bills and things like that, like normal people do. There's just not a surplus, and surely can't come up with $500 a month. Another $125 a week is not going to happen. Especially when I get weeks that'll drop down to 25 or 30 hours. It ain't happening. Period. So there was a hard choice. So I made those hard choices. What I didn't know was that our local county hospital has something called a community care program. And it was through something I was chasing down a bill that kept reoccurring that my wife's Medicare should have covered. And I talked to this lady at Broadlines, the county hospital, and she told us about the program, and then determined that we qualified. We make under $51,000 jointly, so anything we do at Broadlines will cover it. And so whatever her Medicare can't cover, they'll cover, except prescriptions. On my hand, my prescriptions and everything are good. I'm going to take a pause for a moment. Let's see if I can do this right. Right. Okay, resuming recording. I had to take a break for a moment. That is another part of my medical problems or pending problems for this year. Like I said, 4 teeth, potentially 3, maybe 5 other teeth in here are in desperate need of repair of some sort. Broadlines offers a dental program there, and I covered 100%. So the wife did too. So we have appointments for tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. If the weather holds, it's being icy out right now, so I have a 10-hour overnight job tonight, starting around 7 o'clock, and probably lasting until 4 or 5 in the morning, and I really need those hours, so I hope the roads cooperate, right? I'm definitely going to try to do the job, and then I'll come home and I'll take a nap and I'll sleep, get up around noon, 1 o'clock, and get a quick meal and go to the doctor or dentist. The program allowed me to resume having a doctor appointments. So I went to the doctor a couple 3 weeks ago, and one of those things is I was on medication for hypertension 3 years ago, and low good cholesterol, and a few other minor things. And so when you don't have health care, you don't have a doctor, you don't get prescriptions, you can't get your meds, so you don't have them. And many Americans don't have access to this. And many Americans are fortunate if they get tuned on. See, I didn't have any knowledge that I could qualify for the community thing until a long time. If I'd have known sooner, I'd have gone. But I can be pretty abstinent sometimes when it comes to certain things, but not my health. 54 years old, and you have to be mindful. So this past year, I looked at it from a couple of things. About this time last year, maybe a little before that, I started having urination increases. Yeah, you don't want to hear that stuff, but it's part of human nature, especially for men. I found myself needing to go to the bathroom a lot more than I used to. And in addition to that, I hydrate a lot more. I'm constantly drinking. I drink lots of water. I drink pop. I drink apple cider. I drink milk. I burned through a gallon of milk by myself Christmas Eve, Christmas, just because it was cold and it tasted good, and I don't know. I just kept going at it. So I burned through a gallon of milk by myself. I've spaced out my pop. Instead of drinking pop after pop, I'll drink a pop, and I'll drink a bottle of pop, I'll drink water. I'll space them out now. Excuse me. I prefer Pepsi. Part of the teeth problem, no doubt. But I know that Coke has much less calories, so I'm alternating. So I'll get a Pepsi here, I'll get water, then maybe a Coke, and et cetera, maybe 2 waters if they're cold. I've noticed that my taste buds don't taste the same on certain things. So drinking water leaves me more thirsty than drinking a soda. You drink a pop, I get a little bit of pop in there, and I feel more satisfied than I do drinking water. And I think it's the sugar content, and along with you know, the caffeine. And there are people, well, you drink sugarless pop. I'll never drink a diet pop ever. I'll give up pop altogether, which will be almost impossible because that is my addiction. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I drink fairly moderately, and compared to everybody else, I know I'm a pretty moderate drinker. And so soda, that pop is my thing, and it probably will help kill me. But something's going to do that no matter what we do. It's just moderation. Moderation. Try to moderate it. So over the last year, I noticed I've lost weight. Last year I spiked up. In 16 I got down to about 270, which was a record for me since high school. I swear I had never been, in my early 20s, because I was 230 at 18, so I had gone up to 420. And back in 2002, 2005, I was in the 400s, and it took a long time to get down below it and stay there. And then I got down below. It took much longer to get below 300. It was very, very hard, and I managed to accomplish this. Then things changed in my life, and we found ourselves in a much more stressful situations. My mom dealing with my mom's issues, and then her death, and living in the RV and trying to find a home for ourselves, etc., etc. It was just very stressful for me, and I boomed up to 340 or so, which is where I was weighing in about this time last year. And then I started noticing that all my stuff's in the last 6 months, I've gone down belt sizes. All my pants are way too big for me now. They're all 48s, and I need 44s, probably not quite yet a 42, but there's at least two pant sizes right there. I've also gotten older, so I've noticed a change in my muscle tone. 10 years ago, I did a lot of weightlifting and speed walking. My knees and stuff aren't meant for jogging, so speed walking would be the good term for it. And that was when we had a different lifestyle, we had different things, different priorities, etc., etc. When all that changed, I changed everything with it. So we come full circle about, like I said, I went to the doctor a couple weeks ago. They did a bunch of blood work. He said my lungs sound good, my heart sounds good. My blood pressure was a little up. Now, he didn't say exactly. They said, but I have trouble with those numbers. I just can't really get my fingers around very well when it comes to how the blood pressure thing works. And I acknowledge that I get agitated sometimes pretty quick, especially over having to discuss things like this. So when I was sitting there trying to explain to the nurse the situations, and I felt the need to defend the situations I'd been in, and that's not necessarily true. Sometimes we find ourselves in our life in problem situations, and many people don't ever face this. God bless you, and I'm glad for you. You never had to go through what a lot of other people do go through, and the extreme that they go through. And it's apples and oranges. It's apples and pineapples. Some people just absolutely cannot fathom. Oh, they'll talk, oh, we had time where we had to eat a lot of macaroni and cheese, and we had to go through, we had to watch our toilet, how much toilet paper we used. And yet they live in a really nice house now, and they have nice vehicles and things like that, and they talk about how horrible that little period of time was. So imagine dealing with that every day for your majority of your life, right? Not worrying about toilet paper because you're borrowing it from the local gas station's bathrooms when they're not paying attention. I have not been to that point, but I come close a couple times to thinking about it. So next month, next 2 months, while I'm trying to decide whether we have to buy her meds, so we won't be buying groceries for that week. How do you prefer? Well, I've tried to stock up on a lot of things that are durable, so we don't have to get as much at the grocery store. I will moderate what we do buy because we don't have a choice. I personally will give up a few things because we as a family, need to have some basics, and she needs some things, and I want her to have the things she wants. And if that means me foregoing a few things I want for a while, I don't know. I'm not the best husband in the world, but I try. I'm not the best father in the world, but I try. I try to be the best employee I can be. Sometimes I fail at that too. We're all perfect. As for things like the dental issues, yeah, you can sit there and say, oh, well, you didn't drink so much Pepsi or so much pop, right? It's true to some degree. From a certain point of view, Padawan, that too is true. Now, in my defense, my sister came over for Christmas Eve, which was a rare event in and of itself. She brought a friend. We actually had a good time. The four of us had a really decent time. Played some Yahtzee, and I ran my mouth for most of the time because that's that's what I am naturally. It's a chatty Cathy. The since I was a kid, she made the point that our dad, always hated my teeth because almost there was not a year go by that I didn't have to have dental work. I never had braces or nothing like that, but I had 5 or 6 root canals in my teens. How many teenagers do that? And it's in part because I just always had bad teeth. And I brush teeth. I brush them all the time. I still brush what's left of them all the time. My gums don't bleed. So there you have it. I still have bad teeth. And we're at that point in our life where it expedites. And to go hand in hand with the bad teeth is the lack of proper dental care. That's a terrible thing in our country. We can get a lot of ways to find medical care, even in emergencies. When it comes to dental care, it's not quite the same. Now, my father worked for Firestone for 30 years after he got out of the Marines, and they had a crack insurance program which included dental. Well, when I turned 18, that was that. So I would go to the dental college to get dental work. I would go to the community hospital, like I'm doing now, to get some dental work done. And it was hit or miss. Every now and then I would have to pay for something out of pocket, and they're so hideously expensive. It's a detriment when you are struggling for money on a regular basis. The idea of shelling out back then $400 or $500 for a root canal, it's $1,000 plus now. That's where my choice was when I went to have these teeth. I couldn't afford to pay $1,000 for the damn root canal and save the tooth. So I paid the $250 to tell them to pull it because it was better than dealing with the pain. Now, I wish I'd had the dental thing through the community hospital, the county hospital that I am signed up for now this year. And of course, this is only good for year to year. So next year, things change, finances change. We see a lot of the increase in our stuff going up. Say hi to Frankie. Money-wise, hours-wise, which would be a good thing, but it might push me over that level of what's acceptable for the community program for insurance, and then I'll be back to not having insurance, right? So, well, like I said, full circle. The teeth, big problem. It's affecting my speech more than ever. I mean, I've always had kind of dodgy speech anyway because, I lower to middle class Iowa farm boy I got good education, fairly good education, but just not very articulate in the verbal aspects. Even as much as I talk, I still have issues. The increased urination concern. This loss of about 40 pounds this last year. Now I can blame a lot of it on the fact we don't go out and eat much these days. We haven't gone out. We've only been out maybe 4 times this whole year since COVID started, and that's through a drive-through at like McDonald's. We used to stop almost every week and go through the Frankie. It's your little Frankie. It's your little Frankie. I want it up there. So we're saving money there, but of course we don't have the money to go anyway. So it's kind of back to apples and oranges thing. But we're not consuming those gobs of calories. I've also noticed that I started noticing late last year that we were eating portion size like we've been for years and throwing a lot of it away. That we would eat something and then eat about 2/3 of it, and then there'd be leftovers. And instead of just keep forcing it down, we just start throwing it out. So I started making smaller portions for meals since I do most of the cooking, and this has extended our what we buy at the grocery store it's still terrible because I can't seem to walk out of the grocery store without dropping $150, and it's just her, me, and two cats, and the two outside cats, I guess, if you want to look at it. So we're not. It's not like we're feeding an army of people, but it costs. Well, you go to the store, right? Like $10 for 2 gallons of milk, and I already burned through one of them. Actually, we burned through both of them. I finished the second one off this morning, so we went to the convenience store yesterday and got another one. So. Too much milk is not necessarily good for you either, but nobody can say I'm not getting plenty of vitamin D, because that's not the problem. The loss of 40 pounds wasn't intentional. I didn't set out to lose it. I wasn't putting myself on a diet. I wasn't purposely, though unconsciously perhaps, because I am eating less. When we were eating 3 meals a day on my days off and things like that, I got used to my weird hours, my job. A lot of split shifts and things, and so I will eat in the morning, and then I'll eat late in the afternoon, and sometimes then I'll have a snack in between or later in the evening. Generally speaking, we don't have heavy meals late in the evenings anymore. I shoot for 4 or 5 o'clock, and I guess it's an old person thing, but I think that plays a part in the diet change. I also have been baking far more than frying. I used to fry a lot of stuff. I used to fry our French fries and things like that, and I like a good fried French fry. And I still occasionally do, but not like every meal now. And there's a lot of meals I don't even do the fries. We just have the hamburgers and no fries, right? I'm not buying potato chips like I was. I don't eat the potato chips anymore because the teeth, they're just terrible in my teeth. And then there's the salt. Right, I try to reduce my salt content as much as possible. So tomorrow in the afternoon we visit the dentist, and I suspect I'll have to go back a couple times to get everything that they're willing to do done, and I'm going to push them for what they can do. And then Tuesday morning at 9, I got to go back to the doctor's office they want to take my blood pressure a second time, and so it's a follow-up, and they'll look at all the blood work that they took from the previous time, and they also have me pending schedule for well, we all have to go through this thing when we get to a certain age, and I don't really want to get into the gory details, but I'm not looking forward to it. And my boss's wife, who has been through it twice, she says, oh, we will definitely schedule work around that, because she says once you start the process, you're not going to be able to go from the bathroom very far. So I'm not looking forward to that either. They already sent me the big package and stuff in it that I'm supposed to do. You just need to schedule when we're going to do this thing. Right? So, hey, that's state of my dungeon, state of my table. Coming up in this year, I am still about halfway through the Miller stuff I have. I'm getting over the halfway mark. And the same thing with the Star Wars. I'm getting through the halfway part on the Star Wars. So we're getting down to the wire on that stuff. We will have I'm hoping by towards the end of the year, when I'll start transitioning once this is almost out to I'm thinking I'm heading for Table Dec, right? Because I have such a large selection of MechWarrior Battletech from FASA, and it's such a rich world with a lot of things going on and lots of possibilities and potentials and many layers on top of layers. So, hey, this is Rick, and if you don't listen, you don't care, good for you. I hope you all have a good holiday and a better year for everybody, because my God, we could do so much better with this damn country than what we've been doing. It's shameful. And you know what I mean. Put your own equations to that. But it's the truth. Till next time. That's right.